Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sportsbook Confidential. My name is John Sullivan, and I'm coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. And this little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And it's an interesting sports week. It's the Olympics opening ceremonies start tonight. There have been some preliminary events. You can wager on certain Olympic events. It's not something that I really participate in. I actually had a discussion this morning with a friend of mine, and it's just really hard to get data on a lot of the Olympic sports, I would say, except for maybe golf or tennis or basketball. You might be able to create a model for basketball teams based on their professional performance. Otherwise, to me, it's kind of a crapshoot, and especially this year with the COVID testing, if somebody tests positive, they're not allowed to compete. So there could be a lot of last-minute swings in, who's there and who's not. And it just doesn't strike me as something that is very excited, gets me very excited to wager on. So it's more of a pass for me. But today we're going to continue our NFL previews as we get closer and closer to the start of the NFL season. We're doing the NFC South today. The defending champs, of course, Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC South, so we'll talk about them and the other teams. And there's no racing this weekend to talk about. I know there's a golf tournament. I'm not a golf guy. I don't know enough about it, and it's a very competitive market. So I usually steer clear of that. But there is soccer, and I'm going to preview some of the MLS matches for this weekend and use a stat that's been very helpful to me, expected goal differential. And I have a sportsbook lesson on expected goal differential. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up. If you look up all of our past episodes on YouTube. So, but before we get into today's show, let's do what we always do and update our bankroll. And a very slight regress this week. Somebody commented, I made a joke about wearing my winner's shirt last week. And I said, it doesn't happen very often. I didn't mean any winning week. I meant winning week while wearing my winner's shirt. But anyway, you can take it however you want. I don't care. Starting bankroll, $306. We had Lewis Hamilton to win the British Grand Prix, and that was a very exciting race. There was a crash on the first turn. Verstappen was out. Lewis Hamilton was given a 10-second penalty. He was able to come back and win the race, passing on the next to last lap the Ferrari for the win. Lewis Hamilton, I think, closed at plus 200. So if you bet that, you did pretty good for yourself. Plus $19 to the bankroll. I picked Kevin Harvick to win the New Hampshire NASCAR race, and he was in the lead for a good portion of the race. It was a very strange race. There was a rain delay. NASCAR ran them in the rain for several laps, causing first and second place cars to crash. They were not happy about it at all. And a lot of controversy in that race, which actually ended about 10 laps early. So Eric Almirola won that race. I think he was about 100-1 to win, so he was definitely unexpected. But I had Ryan Newman in the top 20, and he faded out of the top 20, so that's minus $10. Tyler Reddick in the top 10. I should have bet him in the top 20. He finished 13th, and Cole Custer in the top 20. That was a win for us. Plus $7 to the bankroll. He finished 14th. So I dropped $4 to the bankroll. So the new bankroll is $302. Dividing by 30 as we always do, because we try to remain selective sports bettors. Our new bet size, or our bet size remains $10 going forward. So no real damage this week. Could have been Tyler Reddick, if he could have stayed in the top 10, that could have been a nice winning week for us. But it is what it is. So we move on. We live to fight another day. So, of course, we're previewing the NFC South today. The Carolina Panthers, the Atlanta Falcons, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the New Orleans Saints. So, of course, Tampa Bay is the defending Super Bowl champ, so you can obviously figure out who is likely the favorite to win this division. But let's start. We're going north to south, so let's start with the Carolina Panthers. So the odds from Pinnacle Sports, these odds may vary at your local sports book, so take them with a grain of salt. But to win the division, Carolina Panthers are the long shot at plus 1070. Almost 11-1. To win the NFC, about 38-1. And to win the whole enchilada, 89-42, or just under 90-1. So the big news in the offseason for Carolina is signing Sam Darnold. The Jets knew they were ready to move on from Sam Darnold, and he moves to Carolina. I think a change of scenery is good for him to be out of the New York media market. The Charlotte media market is definitely not going to be as intense. And if he wants to, be a low-key personality, I don't know if that's his makeup, but he's shown professional flashes of brilliance mixed with some huge disappointments. I would not, off the top of my head, I don't know what he's getting paid, but I would not give up on him as a professional prospect yet. So I think this was a very good pickup for Carolina. And Carolina was a team that was somewhat competitive until the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. So, I predicted they would be like an 8-8 team last year, and I think they were 7-9 or 6-10, but they were on the pace to be an 8-8 team. So going to the running back, of course, you got Christian McCaffrey, C-Mac. He is going to be your all-purpose, all-everything, all-world running back. And one of the best names in the NFL is his backup, Chuba Hubbard. And that's, a fantasy tip for you if you want to handcuff. If you go all in on Christian McCaffrey on your fantasy team, and if for some reason he gets injured, you might want to handcuff Chuba Hubbard to your team. So for the wide receivers, you've got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, who has some experience with Darnold with the Jets, and Terrace Marshall as your top three. And Ian Thomas is the tight end. And doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in the passing game, assuming that Darnold steps up. Now, what does inspire a little optimism is the offensive coordinator, whose name escapes me. I think it might be Brady. I'm not sure. Who was the He was the coordinator for the LSU Tigers when they won the national championship year before last, and they had a very explosive offense. So this, they've kind of this is the first year. They had Bridgewater last year, and now he's in Denver. So they have a chance to really model the team with the athletes that they want. So I don't, the receivers don't inspire a lot of confidence in me to think that they're going to have a solid passing game. However, with Christian McCaffrey, I don't know if they're going to rely heavily on play action or not, but it certainly could work. The formula could work. Joey Sly's the kicker, had a decent year last year. There's little depth on the left offensive line, and that's kind of a recurring theme. Carolina does have subs at that level. A lot of the teams I've looked at this year in their depth charts only have one or two natural left tackles and guards as starters, and then no subs. So you take what you can get. And again, if your passer is right-handed, that's the front side as opposed. No, I'm sorry. If your passer is right-handed, that is the blind side that they're defending. So it's a very important position on the offensive line. So on the defense, you got this front seven returning healthy in a 4-3 setup. Dante Jackson missed the last 7 or 8 games from IR, their number one cornerback, and A.J. Boye was signed from Denver, and he has 2 games left on a suspension of a 6-game suspension, which is usually a suspension for banned substance. So they will have a new extra defensive back to work with there. And again, we go back to the big question: will the offensive coordinator, the passing coordinator, resurrect Darnold's career? This team was, in a lot of 21-24 type games last year. They scored points, but they gave up points. And they'll either need to, in order to get over that hump and get to a winning record, they will need to either continue to improve the offense or continue to improve the defense, or both. It remains to be seen, but they will get the benefit of somewhat of an easier schedule out of conference. So we'll see. I think I'm slightly optimistic about Darnold being as good as Bridgewater this year. If the going gets tough, he may fold. But if the team believes in him, I feel like, he's in a position where he's not set up to fail in the media. So I think an 8-8 or a 9-8 season, that type of season, could be in the cards for Carolina. It's going to be tough for them to win the division, but I think they're an improved team, and that will make it a little bit harder for these other teams in the division to, cruise to a division title or a playoff bye. So let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons, and actually this is the team that I like from a betting perspective the most. And we're going to start to win the division plus 929. I think that those are really quite good odds for a division crown for Atlanta. Atlanta has had some extensive injury issues and, of course, coaching issues over the last couple of years. But they've cleaned house, and there's a part of me, I'm just reading tea leaves here, but there's a part of me that thinks that Julio was a little bit of a disruptor in the locker room or the chemistry of this team, because it was always, will he, won't he play? If he does play, how many targets is he going to get? He was the most targeted player in the red zone for a few years in the league, and it was kind of predictable. We'll see what changes. Well, it might just take a few subtle changes to get this team back into a contending role again. Obviously, Matt Ryan doesn't have that many years left, but this team is intriguing to me. To win the NFC, 28-1. To win the Super Bowl, about 76-1 in that range. And, of course, you've got Matt Ryan at quarterback, A.J. McCarron, Mr. Second String, backing up. And Mike Davis is going to be your every down back for Atlanta, and they're going to need a healthy running back game. That is something that's haunted them for the last couple of years. Javian Hawkins appears to be his backup if you're looking for a handcuff opportunity. But here's where I get excited about the Atlanta offense. Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage, and Zacchaeus is your top three wide receivers. Zacchaeus was injured for most of last year. He had a couple of monster weeks, and it's the jury's still out whether he's going to be a stud receiver or not. People are like, he just got an opportunity because Julio was out. So I don't know. Maybe they believe in him. Kyle Pitts is the tight end. Tight end is a key element to the Atlanta passing game. Look for, if you need a sleeper fantasy pick right there, Kyle Pitts might be your guy. And Younghoe Koo is the kicker. He gets the benefit of kicking in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. He's bounced around a bit, but he seems to have found a home in Atlanta. I wonder about him at 50 or more, but inside of 50, I think he's pretty decent. Here we go. We have no natural left guard on the offensive line. There's depth on the offensive line, but there's not a natural left guard listed on their depth chart. The defense enters the season completely healthy in a 4-3 setup. there's depth throughout the defense, which means there's no positions where if injury occurs, players will be playing out of their natural positions, which in theory is great. The only problem is Atlanta gave up a lot of points last year. You remember that early in the season they had that 39-40 game against Dallas where they were way ahead and they gave up 24 points in the last quarter or whatever it was. So the big question, can the defensive coordinator, the new defensive coordinator, Dean Pease, comes over from the Titans, bring success to Atlanta? All this team really needs to do is get that scoring defense down 8 points a game, and all of a sudden they're, instead of being 6-10, they might be 11-6 or 10-7. So I feel like this is a team that can compete in the division if they stay healthy in the offensive skill positions and their new defensive coordinator can bring in a system that will cut the scoring down. So it doesn't look like it's going to take a lot. It's not. They're not short enough personnel. It's not a situation where they need another player to make their team complete. It's just a matter of coaching and staying healthy and hoping that the Father Time hasn't caught up to Matt Ryan at all. So, and then we're going to move on to the Tampa Bay Bucs, and this is a team that bedeviled me last year because I was not sold. This was the team that had the most money wagered on it preseason to win the Super Bowl, and obviously Tom Brady signing with Tampa Bay, which resulted in Gronk signing with Tampa Bay, which resulted in Antonio Brown signing with Tampa Bay. But I didn't feel like they were a Super Bowl contender, and they started the season slow. I think they were 4-3, and then they finished 11-5, and they had to play 3 consecutive road playoff games to get to the Super Bowl, and they did. Of course, they got a home game in the Super Bowl for the first time ever that happened for a team. And, I just said it's too hard for a team to win 3 consecutive road games in the playoffs, just to get to the Super Bowl. And I bet against them pretty much every week in the playoffs last year, much to my chagrin, including the Super Bowl. So congratulations to Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. I always said that Bruce Arians was a good coach, and when they had Jameis Winston, who single-handedly produced 30 turnovers in the season, that defense, it's hard to be a good defense when you're giving up horrible field position on turnovers. And that was the problem. And now they had a team that, was experienced and managed the ball very well, and they won the turnover battle, and all of a sudden the defense looks like all-world team. So let's look at the odds real quick. To win the division, -213, the runaway favorite there. To win the NFC, +276, they are also the favorite to win the NFC. And to win the Super Bowl, +684, about 6.5 to 1. Second favorite behind Kansas City. And when you look at this team from the skills positions, it's super impressive. It's, you just look at, this is like somebody's fantasy team. Tom Brady, the GOAT, and Blaine Gabbert is the backup. And then your running backs, you have Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, Giovanni Bernard. Lots of depth there. Wide receivers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. And then the tight ends, you got 3 quality tight ends, Gronk, Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard. The kickers, Ryan Suckup. Like a lot of teams, no depth on the left offensive line. Brady is great at getting rid of the ball. He does not like to get hit. As he's gotten older, obviously his mobility is a little less. I mean, he wants to play till he's 45. I think he's 42 now. He's very good at throwing the ball into, the ground, throwing the ball away, not getting intentional grounding. So this team actually has all 22 starters returning from last year's Super Bowl champion. 3-4 defense, all the defensive all the starters returning, healthy. Devin White, who played just amazing in the playoffs, he's a superstar in waiting. He was just all over the field. They were able to shut down Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. They were able to shut down Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Although Mahomes was hurt, there's no question about it. But they got the job done. So Tampa Bay will obviously get a much tougher schedule this year than they got last year because they build the strength of schedule on the previous season. And can they stay healthy? I mean, they're another year older. Obviously, last year, Godwin, Evans were both hurt for significant portions of the season. They had other receivers come in, and there was always somebody to fill that gap. So A.J. Howard was hurt for the second half of the season. He was completely out for the playoffs. O.J. Howard, excuse me. So they've always had somebody to step in. So if that happens with offensive line, or if that happens with, their running backs, if they have 2 or 3 running back injuries, things like that, crazy things like that happen. Already Cam Akins, they're saying he's out for the year in LA Rams. So they're trying to figure out who their starting running back is going to be. So these things happen. It's something you need to think about. I am just a firm believer in not I don't think there's value in betting the Bucs in the Super Bowl at, plus 650 or whatever it is. I can bet a soccer game, or I can bet a NASCAR race where the favorite is plus 650 and have a really good shot at winning and turn my wager around in one day, as opposed to letting the sportsbook hold on to my money for 5 to 6 months. I do think obviously Tampa Bay is the favorite to win this division, but I just don't feel comfortable laying minus 215 for 5 months to get my money back. It just doesn't seem like a good investment to me. But to each their own. All those people that wagered money on Tampa Bay last August are smiling today. All right, let's go to New Orleans Saints and wrap up this division. To win the division, plus 315, they're the second favorite. To win the NFC, plus 1364, about 13.5 to 1. To win the Super Bowl, about 30 to 1. So you've got, I don't want to call it a quarterback controversy, but Drew Brees is retired. You have famous Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill as your quarterback slash. This is kind of the situation that the Pittsburgh Steelers were in the 90s, and they had Neil O'Donnell, and then they had and Bubby Brister, and then they had Cordell Stewart, who was, a quarterback that could play running back, that could play wide receiver. And Taysom Hill, obviously, he plays special teams. He plays tight end. He runs certain plays, short yardage plays. These guys are both signed for multiple years at a pretty decent price. So you expect that they're both going to play. But Jameis Winston is listed as the starter. And as I said before, his last season as a starter, he accounted for 30 turnovers single-handedly, fumbles and interceptions. When you look at the running backs, you got a lot to be excited about here. Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray, and Ty Montgomery, solid depth at running back. I would say that tandem of Murray and Kamara is up there in the league with about 3 or 4 other tandems. Nick Chubb comes to mind in Cleveland with the fella that used to be in Kansas City. The name escapes me at the moment. Anyway, there are very few combos that are as strong as that. When you get to the wide receivers, you do have quality in your top 3 wide receivers: Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, and Marquez Callaway. Here's another sleeper tight end, Adam Troutman. The tight end was a big part of Drew Brees' passing attack Sean, obviously the coaching is the same. The offensive coordinator, the playbook is probably the same. But a tall tight end was always a big part of Drew Brees' passing attack. He wanted that large target. And Troutman's limited playing time, he has caught, I think he said last year he caught 15 of 16 targets. So he's going to be the number one guy, and he should get a lot of looks. That might be a late round tight end for you fantasy people. All right. Kicker's Will Lutz. He's been there several years in the Dome. Balanced, healthy offensive line. 4-3 defense anchored by Cam Jordan. And starting defensive lineman Oyamada has a 6-game suspension to start the year with banned substance. And bottom line here is team will need to win the turnover battle. So obviously we need Jameis Winston to not have turnovers. And last year Drew Brees had zero mobility and arm strength issues. Jameis Winston does not have arm strength issues. But if the offensive line doesn't improve, they need to have a quarterback in the backfield that can escape, that can extend plays. Taysom Hill obviously has running skills. I don't know about his escapability, broken playability. It seems like most of his plays are very structured running option plays. But this team needs to win the turnover battle. If Winston starts fumbling the ball, it's going to be a long year. It doesn't matter if Sean Payton is the coach or not. We'll see. They believe in him. They signed him last year, gave him a year to learn under Drew Brees. His work ethic is not questioned. I think Jameis Winston is a good team guy. He's not a locker room cancer. He's a good team. He's a good teammate. He's a good practice player. He just fumbles in games. He just loses the ball and makes some poor decisions. There was a question about whether he needed vision correction. I think he does wear contacts now. But New Orleans is the second favorite in the division, but I like Atlanta better over New Orleans, and that's where I would place my money in this division. All right, let's get on to the weekend in MLS. So what I have done here is I've listed the Saturday and the Sunday games, and my metric that I use to measure strength in soccer is expected goal differential. As I said before, I did an episode of our podcast on expected goal differential during the Euros, and you can look that up. But basically, it's how many goals one team is favored over by another, and based on their relative strength. And I use that to decide which teams to wager on. And let's take a look at Saturday's games. We've got Atlanta United hosting the Columbus Crew. I have Columbus as a road team, favored by 0.31 expected goals. It's not really enough to pick them to win, and it's more than enough to not pick a draw, so that's a pass for me. And then I have Minnesota United, the Loons, hosting Portland Timbers, and the Loons are minus 145, and they're favored by 0.54 goals. That's like the minimum range that I would pick a team to win, but at those odds is not very attractive, so that game is also going to be a pass for me. The Chicago Fire hosting Toronto Football Club. Fire's favored by 0.42 expected goals. They've been playing a lot better, Chicago, lately. I don't feel like it's strong enough for me to place a wager on that game. Nashville Soccer Club minus 180 hosting Football Club of Cincinnati plus 550. Nashville's favored by 1.32 expected goals. Obviously, that's a super strong play there, so you'll expect to see that one on my picks. And then we've got FC Dallas plus 105 hosting the LA Galaxy. And Dallas is favored by 0.11 expected goals, and that's almost even strength. So that would be a game where I'd consider the draw. And then we have Real Salt Lake hosting the Colorado Rapids. And I have the Rapids as the road team, favored by 0.33 expected goals. Once again, not enough of a difference to pick either side to win. And then we have the San Jose Earthquakes hosting the Houston Dynamo, and the Quakes are favored by 0.35 expected goals. Again, it's in that no man's land where I would skip a wager on that game. And then on last game on Saturday, the LA Football Club minus 450, hosting Vancouver Whitecaps plus 1,100, favored by 1.32 expected goals. Normally that would be a surefire wager for me, but at minus 450, I think that's a pass. I'm not laying 4.5 units just to win 1 unit on a soccer game, because that could easily be a tie. LA could get a red card and one of their players goes off, and they're playing 10 men versus 11. They're definitely the better team. It's just not favorable odds. There's no value in a wager there. And then finally on Sunday, we've got New York City Football Club hosting Orlando Soccer Club. New York City favored by 0.44 goals. Again, I call that the no man's land range. There's no real wager there. The New England Revolution minus 240, hosting Club Football Montreal, favored by 0.52 goals. The Revolution won their last game 5-0 against a very bad Miami team. I don't feel like they should be favored this much, so I don't feel like that's a good wager. And then there's Club Football Miami, hosting Philadelphia Union. Union's favored by 0.48 expected goals. Miami is the worst team in the league. I do like Philly here. It's kind of like a borderline wager for me. The numbers aren't really strong enough, but I do like Philly to win that game. DC United plus 120 at home, hosting the New York Red Bulls, plus 245. DC United favored by 0.6 expected goals. That's right on the edge of a wager for me, DC United. And then finally, Seattle Sounders, who won last night, hosting Sporting KC. And I have KC as a 0.32 goal favorite. This is a position where I think the Sounders have massive injuries right now. And I think KC at plus 210 is actually a good value, even though they're only favored by 0.32 expected goals. They're facing a team that's going to have 7 or 8 replacement level players. So that's a scenario where, the injury news kind of makes up for the lack of data placing your wager there. So let's get to it. My picks for the week, we went real simple here. Going to take Nashville minus 180 to win on Saturday. We're going to take the Dallas LA Galaxy draw at plus 290. And we're going to take DC United on Sunday at plus 120. So we got 3 soccer picks for you. And we'll have another NFL preview next week. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. Enjoy the Olympics and enjoy this fine weather we're having. And we'll see you next time. Stay safe, everybody. Let me play the outro music for you. And let's get some winners.